Well, she took over an office said to be in turmoil. Gabe Boynton was named Smith County District Clerk after the former clerk, Penny Clarkston, resigned earlier this year. A district judge alleged discrepancies over court costs and incorrect fees had gone unresolved. As KLTV7's Michael Richardson reports, Boynton's first job was to sort it all out and fix the problems.
Smith County's court system relies on the district clerk's office, and errors can impact time, money, and the confidence of judges. In February, former district clerk Penny Clarkston was in Judge Austin Reeve Jackson's courtroom after failing to produce a correct bill of costs for court cases.
It begins to appear like she's playing games with the courts, because she does this.
District Clerk Gabe Boynton's tenure comes after Clarkston resigned. Her first task, fix the problems and streamline cumbersome processes.
There's a lot of reporting that goes out to various agencies that we're required to do, and we learned how to do that better, to work smarter, not harder.
Jackson says Boynton has been a breath of fresh air. He adds court costs have been accurate, and paperwork that used to take days to receive is now being done in hours.
That's where the relief comes from now. Not knowing that we're never going to have a problem, but knowing that when we have a problem, we're going to be able to address it properly, efficiently, and quickly.
Boynton is leading an effort to spread the word about the county's e-response system, which she adds is saving jury candidates from unnecessary commutes.
We know it's working better because less people are showing up only to be told they're not needed.
Looking ahead, the office will be relocating to the new county courthouse, where Boynton wants to streamline the check-in process with kiosks. Michael Richardson, KLTV7 News.
And again, Gabe Boynton was appointed to that role earlier this year, and come November, she'll face voters with no opponent on the